Hi guys, tonight, we travel back into one of the quietest corners of the ancient world, where life moved with gentle certainty beneath wide skies and the slow rhythm of the Nile River. There are no loud moments waiting ahead, no hurried footsteps, and no need to rush toward anything. Instead, there is only the soft passing of time, carried by warm desert winds and the quiet breathing of a civilization that lived much of its life in familiar patterns. As the stars shine above the river, the villages rest beneath a blanket of darkness. Small mud-brick homes stand close together, their walls still holding a little warmth from the day's sun. A faint breeze slips through narrow streets where only hours before children played, donkeys wandered, and merchants spoke quietly beneath woven shades. Now the streets are still. Only the sound of distant water reaches the sleeping town. Somewhere along the riverbank, a fisherman finishes tying his boat to a wooden post before stepping carefully onto the shore. His sandals press softly into cool sand that feels very different from the burning ground beneath the afternoon sun. He carries a simple basket with only a few fish remaining inside. Tomorrow will be another day much like this one. There is comfort in knowing exactly what the morning will ask of him. Ancient Egypt was not a place that changed quickly. For many people, the world looked much the same as it had for their parents and grandparents. The houses stayed in familiar places. The fields stretched beside the Nile just as they always had. The seasons returned one after another with quiet patience. Life moved forward without asking for constant new ideas. Perhaps that is one reason this civilization lasted for so many centuries. As you settle into this peaceful journey, imagine standing beside the Nile before sunrise. The air is cool enough that you almost forget the heat that will arrive later. The sky begins as deep blue, then slowly softens into shades of pale gray before gentle streaks of gold appear along the eastern horizon. Birds begin calling across the reeds, one voice after another, until the silence becomes filled with quiet life. Nothing feels hurried. Even the river seems to move with endless patience. The Nile shaped almost every part of Egyptian life. It offered water where the surrounding desert could not. It fed fields that otherwise would have remained dry and empty. It carried boats loaded with grain, pottery, stone, vegetables, linen, and people traveling from one settlement to another. Yet despite all that movement, life beside the river often felt wonderfully predictable. Each season arrived when it was expected. Each flood slowly covered the land before gently pulling away again. Each family prepared for these moments because they had done so countless times before. Imagine a small farming family waking long before sunrise. Inside their home, everyone sleeps on simple woven mats spread across packed earth floors. The walls are made from sun-dried mud bricks mixed with straw. During the hottest months, the roof becomes a welcome place to sleep beneath open skies where even a small breeze feels precious. Before the first light reaches the doorway, someone quietly rises. A mother gently stirs glowing coals that survived the night beneath a layer of ash. She adds small pieces of dried wood and bits of reed until tiny orange flames begin dancing once again. Soon the smell of baking bread slowly fills the room. Bread is more than food. It is part of nearly every day. The grain used to make it came from fields that depended completely upon the river's yearly flood. Every loaf carries within it the work of many hands. Farmers planted the seed. Laborers harvested the stalks beneath the hot sun. Others separated the grain, ground it into flour using heavy stone tools, and carried it home in woven sacks. Even before sunrise, the quiet work of yesterday continues into today. Nearby, children slowly wake. Some rub sleep from their eyes while listening to birds outside. Others help gather water stored in clay jars. There is little conversation at first. The morning belongs to simple routines repeated so often that words are hardly needed. Outside, the village slowly comes alive. A man walks beside two donkeys carrying baskets that will soon be filled at the market. A woman balances a clay jar upon her head with practiced ease, making her way toward the nearest well or riverbank. Dogs stretch lazily beside doorways before following familiar paths through dusty streets. No one wonders whether tomorrow will look very different. They expect it to resemble today. That expectation brings a quiet sense of order. For the ancient Egyptians, change was often something to be approached carefully rather than eagerly welcomed. Stability meant safety. Familiar customs reminded everyone that the world remained balanced. The same festivals returned each year. The same prayers were spoken. The same farming work followed the same seasons. Even children learned these rhythms almost without thinking. As sunlight climbs higher, workers begin making their way toward nearby fields. The ground beneath their sandals still feels pleasantly cool, but they know this will not last long. Soon the desert sun will warm every stone, every wall, and every patch of earth. The fields themselves stretch across rich dark soil left behind by the Nile's flood waters. Rows of young barley sway gently whenever a breeze crosses the land. Men and women bend quietly over their work. Some pull weeds. Others repair small irrigation channels. A few guide wooden plows pulled by patient oxen whose steady pace rarely changes. There is something deeply calming about work that follows familiar movements. Hands know where to reach. Feet know where to step. Eyes recognize every corner of the field. No one needs to invent a new way of doing these tasks each morning. The old ways have carried families through many generations. Not far away, another group of workers shapes fresh mud bricks. Large wooden molds sit beside piles of wet mud mixed carefully with chopped straw. Bare feet press the mixture together until it becomes smooth enough to form solid blocks. Each brick is lifted carefully from its mold before being placed beneath the warm sun to dry. The work is slow. The work is repetitive. The work builds homes that may stand for many years. One brick after another. One careful movement after another. There is little reason to hurry. The builders know that tomorrow they will return and continue where they left off. Across Egypt, thousands of ordinary people lived this way. Their names were never carved onto great monuments. Their faces were never painted inside royal tombs. Yet without them, none of the famous temples, pyramids, or cities could ever have existed. They carried stones. They baked bread. They wove linen. They caught fish. They raised children. They repaired boats. They cleaned homes. They planted grain. Their lives formed the quiet heartbeat of Egypt itself. As the morning grows brighter, the village marketplace begins welcoming its first visitors. Simple wooden stalls appear beneath woven mats stretched between poles for shade. Clay pots sit in careful rows. Fresh vegetables rest inside baskets woven from reeds. Bundles of onions, garlic, lentils, and herbs fill the air with gentle earthy scents. Merchants greet familiar faces. Most customers already know them well. These are neighbors rather than strangers. They have traded together many times before. Prices are discussed calmly. Goods change hands. Life continues exactly as expected. The familiar rhythm itself becomes a kind of comfort. Not because life is always easy. It is often difficult. The heat can be exhausting. The work can leave muscles aching before midday. Illness sometimes arrives without warning. Harvests occasionally disappoint. Yet even during hardship, routines offer something steady. People know what must be done. And tomorrow, they will rise again before sunrise to do it once more. As the sun climbs higher into the pale blue sky, the warmth begins settling over the village like a heavy blanket. Shadows grow shorter. Conversations become quieter. Even the animals slow their pace. The day stretches gently onward, following a pattern that has already repeated itself thousands of times along the banks of the Nile, and without anyone realizing it, another peaceful morning becomes another ordinary day in ancient Egypt. The warmth of the morning slowly deepens, almost without notice. The cool air that welcomed the first light has quietly slipped away. In its place comes the familiar heat that settles across the fields, the village streets, and the broad surface of the Nile. It does not arrive suddenly. It grows little by little, until every stone seems to remember yesterday's sunshine. The farmers continue their work. There is no whistle to begin the day and no bell to announce the passing hours. Time is measured by the position of the sun, the length of the shadows, and the feeling inside tired arms and shoulders. Everyone knows when the morning is young. Everyone knows when it has nearly reached its hottest point. The work itself asks for patience more than speed. A man kneels beside a narrow irrigation channel that winds gently through a field of barley. During the last flood, rich black silt settled over this land, leaving behind soil that feels soft beneath his fingers. A small wall of earth has broken during the night, allowing precious water to drift away where it is not needed. Without complaint, he begins repairing it. He presses damp earth into place with slow, careful movements. His hands are rough from years beneath the sun. Small cracks cross his palms like tiny riverbeds, reminders of countless seasons spent working the land. He has done this many times before. His father once knelt in fields much like these. His grandfather likely did the same. The movements pass from one generation to the next, almost like a quiet language that never needs to be spoken aloud. Nearby, another farmer guides a pair of oxen across a small section of ground waiting for seed. The animals move at an even pace, their steady breathing matching the slow rhythm of the work. The wooden plow leaves shallow lines in the soft earth. Nothing about the task feels hurried. The field will not disappear if the work takes another hour. The seasons themselves move slowly, and the people who depend on them learn to do the same. A light breeze carries the scent of wet soil mixed with dry reeds growing beside the river. Somewhere beyond the fields, birds call to one another before disappearing into tall papyrus plants that sway gently with each passing breath of wind. The sounds of ancient Egypt are rarely loud. Most days are filled instead with small noises. The scraping of wooden tools. The quiet splash of water. The distant voices of neighbors. The soft creak of baskets being lifted onto shoulders. Sandals brushing against dusty paths. These sounds become so familiar that people hardly notice them anymore. In one corner of the village, a young boy follows his mother toward the communal ovens. He carries a small basket that seems much too large for him, though he holds it carefully with both hands. Inside rests a round loaf prepared before sunrise. The dough has already risen beneath a cloth while the morning slowly unfolded. Now it is ready for baking. The oven stands warm from many fires. Women from nearby homes wait patiently for their turn. Some exchange quiet conversation. Others simply watch the glowing coals while adjusting the folds of their linen clothing against the growing heat. The smell of fresh bread slowly fills the air. It is one of the most familiar scents in the village. Almost every household knows it well. Bread is eaten in the morning, during the middle of the day, and again before sleep. It fills empty stomachs after long hours of work and gives strength for tomorrow's labor. For many families, every loaf represents days of effort. Grain had to be planted. Water had to reach the fields. The crop had to survive birds, insects, and changing weather. Workers harvested each stalk by hand. The grain was separated, cleaned, ground into flour between heavy stones, mixed with water, and shaped into dough. Only then could bread appear. Nothing arrived quickly. Nearly everything required patience. That patience shaped the rhythm of Egyptian life. Inside another home, an elderly woman sits near an open doorway where a little breeze still finds its way indoors. Before her rests a simple basket filled with flax fibers. Her hands move almost without thought. She twists the soft fibers together into thread. Slowly. Carefully. Without wasting a single movement. The thread will later become linen cloth, perhaps for clothing, perhaps for household use, or perhaps for trade with another family. The work is quiet enough that she can hear children playing somewhere outside. Their laughter drifts through the warm afternoon air before fading once more. Even children grow up surrounded by routines that rarely change. The youngest learn by watching. They see bread being baked. They watch sandals being repaired. They notice fishing nets being mended beside the river. They observe older brothers carrying water and older sisters helping prepare meals. Little by little, the ordinary work of life becomes familiar. No one sits them down for long lessons. The village itself becomes the classroom. The rhythm of each day becomes the teacher. Not far from the homes, a potter sits beneath a simple shelter made from wooden poles and woven reeds. Shade falls across his workspace, though the air remains warm. Before him rests a wheel turning slowly beneath practiced hands. A lump of wet clay begins changing shape. The potter does not rush. His fingers rise gently along the spinning surface. The clay responds almost as if it already knows what it wishes to become. A storage jar. A drinking cup. A bowl for grain. A vessel for carrying water. Every home depends upon objects like these. Most are plain. Few are decorated. Beauty often comes not from bright colors but from usefulness itself. A well-made pot may serve a family for years. Its smooth surface will be touched thousands of times before finally wearing thin. Nearby, rows of finished pottery dry beneath the sun. Some pieces carry tiny fingerprints left behind during their making. These marks are never removed. Perhaps no one even notices them. Yet they remain, silent reminders that ordinary hands built the ordinary world. Farther along the dusty road, two donkeys carry woven baskets filled with onions and garlic toward a neighboring settlement. The merchant walking beside them keeps an easy pace. He knows every bend in the road. He recognizes every tree that somehow found enough water to grow beside the river. He has made this journey many times. There are no surprises waiting ahead. Only familiar villages. Familiar faces. Familiar conversations. Trade in ancient Egypt often depended upon trust built slowly over many years. People remembered who delivered good grain. Who shaped strong pottery. Who wove fine linen. Who caught fresh fish before sunrise. Reputation traveled quietly from one village to another, carried not by written notices but by simple conversations shared beneath shaded doorways. In another part of the settlement, the steady tapping of stone echoes softly through the warm air. Several craftsmen shape limestone blocks that will eventually become part of a larger building. The work demands strength. Dust settles across their arms, their hair, and the simple linen cloth wrapped around their waists. Sweat gathers beneath the bright sun. Every so often, someone pauses to drink cool water stored inside clay jars whose thick walls help keep the temperature pleasant despite the heat outside. No one speaks very much. The rhythm of hammer against stone almost becomes a kind of quiet music. Tap. Pause. Tap. Brush away the dust. Measure. Tap again. The work continues hour after hour. Many great structures in Egypt were built not through frantic effort but through countless ordinary days like this one. Thousands of patient hands. Thousands of repeated movements. Thousands of peaceful mornings followed by warm afternoons. The buildings rose slowly, just as trees grow one ring at a time. As midday approaches, even the birds become quieter. The heat presses gently upon everything. The air seems heavier now. Dogs seek shade beneath carts. Cats stretch comfortably along cool walls where sunlight has not yet reached. Workers begin slowing their pace. There is wisdom in resting before exhaustion arrives. Some gather beneath date palms whose leaves cast narrow strips of welcome shade. Others sit beside walls built thick enough to hold a little coolness inside. Lunch is simple. Fresh bread. Perhaps onions. Maybe dried fish. A handful of dates if the season is kind. Sometimes beer made from barley accompanies the meal. It is not the clear drink many people imagine today, but a thick, nourishing beverage that provides both food and refreshment after long hours beneath the sun. Conversation remains gentle. People speak about fields. About family. About the coming flood. About repairs still waiting to be finished. No one discusses changing the entire way life works. There is little desire for such things. The old ways have carried them through good harvests and difficult seasons alike. Tradition is not seen as a burden. It is seen as shelter. It offers something dependable in a world where the river, the weather, and health can never be fully controlled. After resting, work begins once more, though more slowly than before. The hottest hours ask everyone to conserve their strength. Even simple movements require greater effort. A fisherman untangles his net beneath the shade of a reed shelter near the riverbank. His fingers move patiently from one knot to another. Small tears are repaired before they grow larger. A neglected net might fail tomorrow. Care today makes tomorrow easier. The lesson appears again and again throughout Egyptian life. Repair. Maintain. Preserve. Continue. Rather than constantly replacing what already works, people care for the things they have. Sandals are stitched. Boats receive fresh rope. Tools are sharpened. Walls are patched after heavy rains. Nothing is wasted without reason. As afternoon light begins its slow journey toward evening, the village continues breathing in its familiar rhythm. Children help carry bundles of reeds. Women prepare ingredients for the evening meal. Craftsmen finish one more piece before putting away their tools. Farmers take one last careful look across the fields before walking home beside the river. The Nile glimmers softly beneath the lowering sun. Its waters continue flowing north, just as they have for countless generations. It asks for nothing. It hurries for no one. Its quiet presence reminds every person living along its banks that some things do not need to change in order to remain deeply valuable. And as the golden light stretches across the fields and mud-brick homes, another ordinary afternoon slowly settles into evening, carrying with it the same peaceful rhythm that has guided the people of ancient Egypt through one calm day after another for centuries. The afternoon slowly begins to soften. The brightest light of the day no longer falls straight down from above. Instead, it stretches gently across the land, painting long shadows beside every mud-brick wall, every palm tree, and every quiet path that winds through the village. The heat remains, but it has begun to loosen its hold. A breeze arrives from the direction of the Nile. It carries the cool scent of fresh water mixed with reeds, damp earth, and distant fields that have spent the entire day beneath the sun. Many workers notice the change without saying a word. Their bodies understand it before their minds do. The hardest hours are passing. A farmer lifts his woven basket onto one shoulder and begins the familiar walk home. His feet know every bend in the narrow path. Small stones press gently beneath worn leather sandals. The earth is dry again where the flood waters disappeared many months before, leaving behind rich soil that has already given life to another season of crops. He passes neighbors returning from different kinds of work. A fisherman carries folded nets over one arm. A young woman balances an empty clay jar after collecting water. An elderly man walks slowly beside a donkey whose baskets are nearly empty after a day at the market. Each offers a quiet greeting. No long conversation is needed. They have shared countless evenings like this. Tomorrow morning they will meet again beneath another sunrise. That certainty brings comfort. There is something peaceful about recognizing the same faces every day. Entire lives unfold within these familiar circles. Children become adults. Parents grow older. New homes appear beside older ones. Yet the village itself remains much the same. The streets are still narrow. The ovens still glow before dawn. The river still rises and falls with quiet patience. Perhaps this is one reason great change came so slowly. Life already possessed a rhythm that felt complete. As the farmer reaches the edge of the village, he pauses for a moment beside a small canal. The water moves quietly between low banks built by careful hands many years ago. Tiny insects dance above its surface. A white bird stands perfectly still among the reeds, waiting for a fish to swim close enough for dinner. Nothing disturbs the silence. The bird waits. The water flows. The evening continues unfolding at its own gentle pace. The farmer kneels to wash dust from his hands. The cool water feels pleasant after many hours beneath the sun. Small lines of dried mud disappear from his fingers. Drops fall back into the canal with tiny ripples that quickly fade away. Simple moments like these happen every day. No one writes about them. No stone carvings celebrate them. Yet they quietly fill the lives of ordinary people. In another part of the village, smoke begins rising from several rooftops. Evening meals are slowly taking shape. Inside one home, a woman kneels beside a low grinding stone. She places a handful of grain onto the flat surface before moving a second stone back and forth across it. The movement is smooth, steady, unhurried. The sound is soft enough to blend with the voices drifting through nearby doorways. Grinding grain is hard work. It asks much from the shoulders and arms. Over many years, the motion becomes so familiar that it almost feels like breathing. The flour gathers little by little. Enough for another meal. Enough to help tomorrow begin. Nearby, another family prepares vegetables gathered earlier in the day. Onions, leeks, lentils, fresh herbs whose scent fills the small room. Clay pots rest above glowing coals while steam rises slowly into the evening air. A child watches carefully, hoping the meal will soon be ready. The smell of baking bread returns once again, just as it did before sunrise. Morning and evening often begin and end with nearly the same comforting scent. It becomes part of the memory of home. Outside, children continue playing while daylight remains. Their games require little. A smooth stone. A woven ball. Simple sticks gathered along the riverbank. Their laughter drifts through the village before slowly becoming quieter as parents begin calling them inside. Even childhood follows familiar routines. Children learn where they may safely wander. They know which neighbors will smile as they pass. They recognize the sounds of each household. One home may always smell of fresh bread. Another may echo with the steady tapping of a craftsman's tools. Another may keep goats whose quiet calls greet everyone walking nearby. The village itself has its own voice. As evening deepens, craftsmen begin closing their workshops. The potter carefully places finished jars beneath a covered shelter where they will remain safe until morning. He wipes damp clay from his hands using a piece of linen already stained from many days of work. The wheel finally stops turning. Silence settles over the workshop. Across the lane, a carpenter gathers his wooden tools into a simple basket. His hands pause for a moment on the smooth handle of an adze polished by years of use. He does not think about replacing it. The tool still works well. Its wooden handle carries marks left by countless afternoons. Each scratch reminds him of another chair repaired, another storage chest built, another door carefully fitted into place. Objects remain with families for many years. They are repaired instead of discarded. Wood is valuable. Stone is valuable. Time itself is valuable. Nothing is treated carelessly. As the sun lowers toward the western horizon, the color of the world begins changing. The bright yellow light softens into warm shades of amber and gold. Mud brick walls seem almost to glow. Palm leaves shimmer gently whenever the breeze passes through them. The Nile reflects the sky like polished metal. Small fishing boats drift quietly toward shore. Their sails hang loosely now that the day's journey is ending. One fisherman stands at the front of his boat, guiding it through familiar water. His catch is modest. Several fish rest inside a woven basket lined with damp reeds. He seems satisfied. Not every day must bring abundance. Some days simply provide enough. Enough food. Enough work. Enough rest. This quiet acceptance shapes much of life beside the river. The people know they cannot command the flood. They cannot order the wind. They cannot hurry the growing of grain. Instead, they learn to move alongside nature rather than against it. This patience reaches into nearly every part of Egyptian life. The seasons teach it. The river teaches it. Even the desert beyond the fields teaches it. Far beyond the green banks of the Nile stretches endless sand. The desert seems almost silent beneath the evening sky. Few people choose to travel there unless they must. It reminds everyone how precious the narrow ribbon of fertile land truly is. Without the river, these villages could not exist. Without the yearly flood, fields would become dry earth. Without the steady rhythm of the Nile, the entire pattern of life would disappear. Perhaps that is why Egyptians respected balance so deeply. The river itself demonstrated that balance every year. Too little water brought hardship. Too much water brought hardship as well. The best years arrived quietly, when the flood reached the right height and slowly withdrew at the proper time. People hoped not for surprises. They hoped for dependable seasons. Dependable harvests. Dependable mornings. Dependable evenings like this one. As darkness begins spreading across the fields, families gather for the evening meal. They sit close together inside cool rooms where thick walls protect them from the day's lingering heat. Oil lamps flicker gently. Their small flames dance whenever a breeze slips through the doorway. Shadows move softly across the walls. The meal is simple but welcome after long hours of work. Bread is broken by hand. Vegetables are shared. Fish caught earlier in the day may be divided among several family members. Children listen while older relatives speak quietly about tomorrow's tasks. No one raises their voice. The day itself has already taken much of everyone's energy. Conversation naturally slows. After eating, some families step outside onto flat rooftops. The air feels cooler here. Above them stretches an enormous sky filled with stars appearing one by one. Without the bright lights of later ages, the heavens seem almost unbelievably clear. The Milky Way stretches across the darkness like a pale ribbon of dust. Children point toward familiar patterns among the stars. Older people smile. They have looked at this same sky since childhood. Their parents once looked at it. Their grandparents too. The stars themselves never seem to change. Their steady presence offers quiet reassurance. Below, the village gradually grows silent. Goats settle into their pens. Dogs curl beside doorways. The last boats are tied securely along the riverbank. Only the gentle splash of water against wood continues. A scribe finishes writing a short record by the light of a tiny oil lamp. His reed brush moves carefully across smooth papyrus. The writing is neat, patient, orderly. He blows softly across the fresh ink before rolling the sheet into a careful bundle. Tomorrow another record will be written. Another count of grain. Another list of supplies. Another ordinary page preserving another ordinary day. Even the work of scribes follows steady routines. They measure. They count. They record. Day after day. Year after year. Many generations later, those quiet records will become tiny windows into a civilization that rarely hurried itself. The lamp is gently extinguished. Darkness returns. Across the village, families prepare for sleep. Some spread woven mats across cool floors. Others climb onto rooftops where the evening breeze offers greater comfort during warm seasons. Children grow sleepy almost as soon as they lie down. Adults listen for a few moments to the distant sound of the Nile flowing through the night. It is a sound they have heard every evening of their lives. Constant. Gentle. Unchanging. Tomorrow, before the first bird calls across the reeds, the village will awaken once more. The ovens will glow again. The fields will welcome familiar footsteps. The boats will return to the water. The grinding stones will sing their quiet song. And without anyone speaking of it, another peaceful day will begin almost exactly as the one that has just slipped softly into the calm Egyptian night. The night settles gently across the valley. The warmth stored inside the mud-brick walls slowly begins to fade. The rooftops, which gathered the heat of the long afternoon, now welcome the cooler air drifting from the Nile. A quiet stillness spreads from one end of the village to the other, not because every sound disappears, but because every sound grows softer. The river continues moving. It never asks for attention. Its slow current brushes against wooden boats tied securely along the bank. The ropes creak from time to time as the water gently lifts and lowers each small vessel. Somewhere nearby, a frog calls from the reeds. A second answers. Then silence returns. Many families sleep on their rooftops during the warm months of the year. Thin woven mats lie side by side beneath the open sky. Blankets are folded nearby in case the air grows cooler before dawn. A young child stirs for a moment. He opens his eyes just enough to see thousands of stars stretching from one horizon to the other. Their quiet light has watched over the Nile for longer than anyone can remember. Within a few breaths, he is asleep again. His father remains awake for only a little longer. He folds one arm beneath his head and listens. The distant sound of water. The gentle whisper of wind passing through palm leaves. A donkey shifting its weight somewhere below. These are familiar sounds. Comforting sounds. Nothing unexpected disturbs the darkness. Tomorrow will come. The work will continue. There is peace in knowing that. For people living in ancient Egypt, the future was often imagined as another sunrise, much like the last one. Seasons changed, children grew older, harvests came and went, but the structure of daily life remained steady. Few people wished for constant change. Stability allowed families to plan. It allowed grain to be stored. It allowed temples to be maintained. It allowed villages to grow little by little without losing their familiar shape. Long before the eastern sky begins to brighten, a faint coolness spreads across the land. This is one of the quietest moments of the entire day. Even the birds have not yet begun to sing. The Nile reflects only the stars. The fields seem to disappear into darkness. A watchman slowly walks along a narrow path near a storehouse where sacks of grain are kept. His footsteps are measured and calm. He carries a simple oil lamp whose small flame glows behind a thin clay cover, protecting it from the breeze. His task is uncomplicated. He watches. He listens. He makes certain that everything remains as it should. Most nights pass without incident. That is exactly how he hopes they will be. When his shift ends, another watchman will quietly take his place. The routine continues without interruption. Inside the grain storehouse, countless sacks rest one beside another. Each contains grain harvested months earlier. Each sack represents long days beneath the sun. Without careful storage, a poor harvest in the following year could become much more difficult. Planning ahead is woven into everyday life. Not through fear, but through habit. People save because they have always saved. They repair because they have always repaired. They prepare because they know the river follows its own schedule, not theirs. As the darkest part of the night slowly passes, the eastern horizon becomes just slightly less black. The change is almost impossible to notice at first. Only those who rise before dawn every day can truly see it. A fisherman is among the first to wake. He sits quietly for a moment before standing. There is no rush. His net has already been repaired. His boat is already waiting. He drinks a little water from a clay jar resting near the doorway of his home. The water feels pleasantly cool after spending the night inside the thick earthen vessel. He steps outside. The air is fresh. The sand beneath his sandals still holds the coolness of the night. He begins walking toward the river. Other figures slowly appear along nearby paths. A baker. Another fisherman. A farmer carrying a wooden hoe across one shoulder. Without speaking, they nod to one another. Each knows where the other is going. Each knows roughly how the day will unfold. The predictability creates a quiet sense of belonging. No one walks alone for very long. Soon the village begins waking together. At the riverside, small boats wait exactly where they were left the evening before. The fisherman unties the rope securing his boat to a wooden post. The fibers feel rough beneath his fingers, polished smooth in places after years of use. He pushes gently against the shore. The boat slides into the water with barely a sound. Mist hangs low above the surface of the Nile. It drifts slowly between clusters of papyrus reeds. The river appears almost dreamlike beneath the fading stars. The fisherman takes up his oars. Each stroke is slow, measured. The boat glides forward without hurry. Fishing before sunrise has become part of his life for so many years that he no longer thinks about each movement. His hands know exactly where to rest. His shoulders know exactly how much strength is needed. Routine has become second nature. Farther inland, smoke begins rising from the first cooking fires. A woman carefully blows across glowing coals until tiny flames appear. Dry reeds crackle softly. Soon a clay oven grows warm enough for baking. Fresh dough prepared the previous evening waits beneath a cloth. She presses it gently into shape before placing it inside. The smell of baking bread slowly returns to the village. It is one of the first signs that another day has begun. Children remain asleep for a little while longer. Parents welcome these quiet moments before the village becomes busy. There is time to sweep the floor. Time to fetch water. Time to prepare the morning meal. Simple household tasks begin long before the sun climbs above the horizon. The home itself requires constant care. Mudbrick walls occasionally need fresh plaster after heavy rains. Roofs must be checked for loose reeds. Clay jars are cleaned carefully before being filled again. Baskets with broken weaving are repaired instead of discarded. Almost nothing is considered too ordinary to deserve attention. Little acts of maintenance prevent larger problems later. This quiet wisdom passes naturally from one generation to the next. A daughter watches her mother patch a basket. Years later she will do the same. A son watches his father straighten a wooden tool handle. One day he will teach those same movements to his own children. Knowledge flows gently through families. Not in long speeches. Not in written lessons. Mostly through watching. Through helping. Through repeating. As dawn finally arrives, sunlight touches the tops of the date palms first. Then it reaches the rooftops. Soon golden light slips through open doorways, across stone thresholds, and into small courtyards where the first chores of the day are already underway. Roosters call from nearby yards. Goats begin stirring. The village stretches awake. A young girl walks carefully toward the river carrying a clay jar balanced against her hip. She has made this trip many times despite her age. The path is familiar. She steps around smooth stones without looking down. At the water's edge, several other women are already filling jars. Their reflections shimmer gently upon the river's surface. They speak quietly while waiting their turn. Their conversation is simple. Someone asks about an elderly neighbor. Another mentions that barley in one field seems to be growing well this season. Someone else wonders whether a cousin from another village may visit after the next market day. These conversations rarely concern distant events. Life is centered close to home. The village provides nearly everything that truly matters. As the jars are lifted once more, each woman begins the careful walk back. The water is heavy. Balanced skillfully upon heads or shoulders, it sways only slightly with each step. These daily journeys happen so often that the paths themselves become smooth beneath countless feet. Even the earth remembers routine. Across the fields, farmers gather once again. The first sunlight feels pleasant after the cool dawn. Tools are lifted. Oxen are guided toward waiting ground. The day begins exactly where yesterday left off. No grand announcement marks its arrival. Only quiet work. Only familiar faces. Only the steady rhythm that has shaped Egyptian life for centuries. And as the sun rises a little higher above the eastern horizon, another peaceful morning unfolds beside the Nile, carrying with it the same gentle patterns, the same patient hands, and the same comforting certainty that, for ordinary people in ancient Egypt, the greatest gift was often not something new, but another calm day that felt beautifully, reassuringly familiar. The morning unfolds with quiet confidence. The first golden light spreads across the fields beside the Nile, touching the tops of barley, the broad leaves of vegetables, and the narrow paths worn smooth by countless footsteps. The air still carries a little coolness from the night, but everyone knows it will not remain for long. The village is fully awake now. Doors stand open. Cooking fires glow. Donkeys wait patiently beside walls while baskets are fastened across their backs. Children carry small bundles of kindling gathered the day before. The day begins without anyone needing to announce it. Each person simply steps into a rhythm that has guided their family for generations. For many Egyptians, life was shaped less by clocks than by light. The pale colors of dawn invited people to wake. The bright sun overhead reminded them to slow their pace. The long shadows of evening gently called them home. The sky itself became a quiet companion, marking each part of the day with changing colors instead of spoken words. Near the edge of the village, a farmer kneels beside a patch of young onions. Tiny beads of dew still rest upon their green leaves. He brushes one leaf gently with his fingertips, watching the droplets fall onto the dark soil below. For a few brief moments, before the desert heat arrives, the earth feels fresh and alive. He breathes deeply. The smell of damp soil rises around him. It is a scent he has known since childhood. It reminds him of the flood waters that returned faithfully each year, bringing new layers of fertile silt from lands far to the south. The flood was never simply an event. It was the heartbeat of the entire valley. When the river rose, villages prepared. When the water slowly spread across the fields, people waited with patience. When it finally withdrew, leaving behind rich black earth, everyone understood what came next. Seeds would be planted. Shoots would appear. Harvest would follow. Then the cycle would quietly begin again. This pattern repeated not for a few years, but for centuries. Perhaps that is why the ancient Egyptians trusted routine so deeply. Every year the Nile reminded them that nature itself preferred gentle repetition. Nothing hurried. Nothing skipped ahead. Everything unfolded in its proper season. Farther along the riverbank, several fishermen stand knee-deep in shallow water. The morning sun sparkles across tiny ripples surrounding their legs. One man carefully unfolds a circular net. He checks each knot with practiced fingers. Even the smallest tear could allow fish to escape. He repairs problems while they are still small. It is another lesson that life beside the Nile teaches again and again. Care taken today prevents difficulty tomorrow. The fisherman lifts the net. For one quiet moment it hangs above him like a woven circle against the brightening sky. Then, with one smooth motion, he releases it. The net opens beautifully before settling across the water. There is no loud splash. Only a soft whisper as rope meets river. Now he waits. Fishing often asks more patience than strength. The water decides its own pace. Nearby, another fisherman quietly mends an older net instead of casting it. He knows there is no need to rush. Tomorrow offers another chance. And the day after that. The river will still be here. Its fish will still swim beneath the surface. The slow certainty of tomorrow allows today's work to remain calm. Back in the village, the first customers arrive at the marketplace. Merchants uncover baskets protected during the night with woven mats. Fresh dates are arranged in neat rows. Clay jars catch the morning sunlight. Bundles of papyrus stems lean against wooden posts. A basket filled with fragrant herbs releases the scent of mint and coriander into the warm air. People greet one another by name. There is little mystery here. Most have known each other for years. One merchant remembers the young man who once came holding his father's hand. Now that same young man arrives with children of his own. Time moves gently through the marketplace. Faces grow older. Children become adults. Yet the marketplace itself changes very little. The same stalls stand beneath the same shade. The same dusty paths connect them. The same careful conversations continue from one generation to another. A scribe walks slowly between the market stalls carrying a small bundle of fresh papyrus. Unlike many workers whose hands grow rough from stone and soil, his fingers remain smooth enough to handle delicate writing brushes. Even so, his work demands patience of another kind. He must write clearly. Count carefully. Notice every detail. Inside a nearby storehouse, he sits beside stacks of grain jars waiting to be counted. One by one, workers carry containers before him. He dips his reed pen into black ink. His brush glides across the papyrus with graceful precision. Each mark is deliberate. Nothing is hurried. A mistake would require correction. Accuracy matters. The written record becomes part of the village's memory. Many people cannot read these careful symbols. Yet they trust the scribes who spend years learning their craft. Becoming a scribe takes far longer than learning many other occupations. A young student begins with simple signs. He copies them over and over until his hand remembers each shape without hesitation. Mistakes are gently corrected. Lessons continue day after day. The process cannot be rushed. Knowledge settles slowly, just as fine silt settles quietly after the flood waters retreat. Elsewhere, builders continue repairing part of a village wall damaged by last season's rain. Fresh mud mixed with chopped straw is carried in baskets. The mixture feels cool beneath bare feet as workers press it together. Children sometimes help by bringing water from nearby jars. Older workers smooth each section carefully with wooden tools. The repaired wall will dry beneath the sun until it becomes as solid as the older bricks beside it. No one expects the wall to last forever. They know repairs will always be necessary. That understanding shapes much of Egyptian life. Nothing remains perfect without care. Homes require maintenance. Fields require tending. Boats require fresh rope. Even temples need constant cleaning and repair. Stability is not something that appears by itself. It is created through countless small acts repeated every day. As the sun climbs higher, the village grows brighter. Shadows shrink. Dust rises beneath busy feet. The smell of warm earth becomes stronger. A potter begins mixing fresh clay brought from the riverbank. The clay is soft and cool at first. He kneads it slowly, removing tiny stones that could weaken the finished vessel. His hands move with remarkable confidence. Years of practice have taught him exactly how the clay should feel. Too much water makes it collapse. Too little water makes it crack. Finding balance is part of the craft. Many Egyptian skills depend upon balance rather than force. A weaver understands the right tension for linen threads. A baker knows the warmth needed for good bread. A boat builder understands how tightly ropes should be pulled. These lessons cannot be learned from words alone. They live inside the hands. As the potter begins shaping another storage jar, his wheel turns slowly beneath steady pressure from his foot. Round and round. Again and again. The rhythm almost resembles breathing. Children often stop to watch. To them it seems almost magical. A shapeless lump gradually rises into a graceful vessel capable of holding water, grain, or oil. The transformation is quiet. No loud tools. No sparks. Only patient hands guiding soft earth. Nearby, two elderly women sit together beneath the shade of a sycamore fig tree. Each holds a basket filled with flax fibers. Their fingers twist and pull the fibers into long strands of thread. Their conversation drifts as gently as the morning breeze. They remember harvests from many years ago. They speak of grandchildren learning to grind grain. One smiles while recalling a festival celebrated decades earlier. The memories are calm. Nothing dramatic. Just ordinary moments that remained precious because they belong to everyday life. Perhaps that is the greatest treasure of routine. It allows small moments to gather quietly over many years until they become a lifetime. The women pause occasionally to stretch their hands. Arthritis has stiffened their fingers with age. Even so, they continue spinning thread. Not because they must produce great amounts, but because the familiar movement feels natural. Their hands would almost miss the work if they stopped entirely. Around them, the village continues breathing in its steady rhythm. Goats wander between shaded courtyards. A baker wipes flour from his arms. A carpenter measures a piece of wood before trimming its edge. Children chase each other through narrow lanes until a parent gently reminds them to stay clear of workers carrying heavy loads. Above it all, the desert sky remains cloudless. Blue. Wide. Endless. The sunlight grows stronger with every passing hour. People begin seeking patches of shade whenever possible. Palm trees become gathering places. Walls cast precious strips of coolness across the dusty streets. Clay water jars stand ready near workshops, their porous surfaces slowly cooling the water within through gentle evaporation. A passing laborer stops for a drink. He cups water in both hands. It tastes fresh. Simple. Exactly what his body needs after hours beneath the growing heat. He wipes his forehead with the edge of his linen cloth before returning to work without complaint. There is still much of the day ahead. And yet there is no feeling of rushing toward its end. Instead, each task is completed one careful step at a time. The sun will continue its journey across the sky. The Nile will continue its quiet flow toward the distant sea. The village will continue following the peaceful rhythm it has known for generations. And as the warmth of another Egyptian morning slowly deepens, the ordinary people of the Nile Valley carry on with patient hands and unhurried hearts, finding comfort not in constant change, but in the familiar patterns that gently hold one day to the next, like the endless current of the river itself. By the time the sun reaches the middle of the sky, the light has become almost white. The morning softness has disappeared, replaced by the steady warmth that settles over the Nile Valley each day. The fields shimmer gently in the distance. The air above the dry path seems to waver, as though the heat itself has become visible. Even so, the village does not stop. It simply changes its pace. People who have lived their entire lives beside the river understand that the hottest hours are not meant for rushing. Strength is precious. It must be used carefully, just as water must be used carefully. A farmer lifts his hoe from the earth and rests it across his shoulders. He looks across the field that has occupied his attention since dawn. The rows remain straight. The irrigation channels still carry a slow ribbon of water. Young plants stand quietly in the rich black soil. There is satisfaction in seeing work completed, even when that work is small. No field is finished in a single day. No harvest grows overnight. Each morning adds only a little. Each afternoon adds a little more. Over many weeks, those small efforts become enough to feed a family. Ancient Egypt was built upon countless small efforts like these. The great temples and towering monuments that later generations would admire did not appear because people hurried. They appeared because ordinary workers returned to their tasks again and again. One day after another. One season after another. One generation after another. Near the edge of the fields, a group of laborers gathers beneath a cluster of date palms. The shade is thin, but welcome. One man removes his sandals and brushes away the fine dust that has gathered around his feet. Another drinks slowly from a clay cup filled with cool water. No one speaks for several moments. The silence is peaceful rather than empty. Sometimes, after hours of steady work, simply sitting together is enough. A breeze passes through the palm leaves overhead. They rustle softly, creating a sound like quiet whispers. The workers lift their faces toward the moving air. Even the smallest breeze feels like a generous gift. One older laborer closes his eyes. For a moment, he listens instead of looking. He hears birds hidden among the branches. He hears the faint splash of water moving through an irrigation canal. Far away, a donkey lets out a slow call before becoming quiet once more. These are the sounds that fill his days. He has known them since he was a child. They have changed very little. There is comfort in that. Not far away, a young apprentice works beside an experienced carpenter. A large piece of sycamore wood rests across two simple supports. The older craftsman runs his hand slowly across the grain before picking up a wooden measuring rod. He does not begin cutting immediately. Instead, he studies the wood. He notices where it bends ever so slightly. He notices a small knot near one edge. Every piece of wood has its own character. To rush would be to ignore what the wood is trying to tell him. The apprentice watches carefully. He has learned that much of craftsmanship is quiet observation. The older man finally marks a line. Only then does he begin working. Each stroke of the blade is calm, measured, deliberate. Fine curls of pale wood fall gently onto the ground. The scent of fresh-cut timber fills the shaded workshop. It mixes with the earthy smell of clay walls warmed by the afternoon sun. The apprentice gathers the wood shavings into a small basket. Nothing useful is wasted. Even these small pieces may help start tomorrow morning's cooking fire. Across the village, the potter's workshop has become quieter. Most of the morning's vessels now rest beneath the sun to dry. Rows of bowls, jars, and small cups stand neatly arranged on wooden boards. Each one is slightly different. No two hands shape clay in exactly the same way. Tiny marks remain where fingers once pressed against the soft surface. The potter notices them. He smiles quietly. Imperfection is natural. A vessel does not need to be flawless to serve its purpose well. A strong jar that carries water safely is far more valuable than a perfect one that breaks easily. Practical wisdom shapes nearly everything in the village. Beauty often grows from usefulness. At the communal oven, fresh loaves continue to emerge one after another. The baker uses a long wooden paddle to lift each loaf carefully from the hot interior. Their crusts are golden brown. The smell spreads through nearby streets, reaching people long before they see the bread itself. A little girl waits beside her mother, watching every movement. She is fascinated by the glowing coals. The baker notices her curiosity. With a warm smile, he hands her a very small piece of bread that has broken from one loaf. It is still warm. She thanks him softly. The bread feels almost too hot to hold. She tears off a tiny piece and tastes it. Simple flour. Simple water. Simple grain. Yet after a morning of work, it seems wonderfully satisfying. Food in ancient Egypt is rarely elaborate. Most meals are modest. But there is comfort in familiar flavors. Bread. Onions. Beans. Lentils. Fresh herbs. Dates. Figs. Occasionally fish from the river. Sometimes milk or cheese. The same foods appear again and again throughout the year. Rather than becoming tiresome, they become reassuring. People know what to expect. Their bodies know these meals. Their kitchens know these recipes. Nothing needs to be invented each evening. The afternoon light slowly begins its long journey westward. The harsh brightness softens almost imperceptibly. Shadows begin growing once more. Workers notice them stretching farther across the ground. Without needing to measure the hours, they understand that the hottest part of the day has nearly passed. Along the Nile, several boys help an older fisherman clean the morning's catch. They sit together on smooth stones near the water's edge. The fisherman shows them how to hold each fish carefully, how to remove the scales without wasting any meat, how to wash everything clean in the flowing river. He teaches patiently, not through long explanations, mostly through example. The boys copy his movements. Sometimes they make mistakes. A fish slips from one pair of hands and splashes back into the shallow water. The others laugh quietly. Even the older fisherman smiles. He remembers doing exactly the same thing many years ago. Learning has always required patience. No one expects perfection on the first attempt. The river has enough time to teach everyone. Farther downstream, a woman kneels beside the water washing linen garments. She dips each piece into the river before rubbing it gently against a smooth stone. The fabric grows bright again beneath her careful hands. Nearby, other women perform the same task. Their conversation drifts across the water. They speak about children who are growing quickly, about neighbors repairing a roof before the next flood season, about a coming festival that will bring relatives from another village. The voices remain soft. The river seems to carry them away almost as soon as they are spoken. A white ibis lands nearby. It steps carefully through the shallows, searching for small creatures beneath the surface. The women hardly notice. The bird has visited this place many times before. People and wildlife have learned to share the river's edge peacefully. Everywhere the Nile touches, life gathers. Fish beneath the water. Birds above the reeds. Farmers in the fields. Children at the shoreline. Boats moving quietly with the current. The river asks each to find a place within its steady rhythm. As the afternoon continues, a merchant prepares for tomorrow's journey. Inside his storeroom, he arranges goods with great care. Bundles of linen are folded neatly. Clay jars are wrapped with woven reeds to prevent damage during travel. Small sacks of grain are stacked beside baskets filled with dried dates. He checks each rope twice. He counts every item slowly. There is no reason to hurry. Leaving with forgotten supplies would only create more work later. Preparation saves effort. This lesson appears everywhere in Egyptian life. A farmer repairs his tools before they break. A fisherman mends his nets before they tear apart. A merchant organizes his goods before beginning the journey. Small acts performed today make tomorrow smoother. Perhaps this quiet way of thinking explains why change came so slowly. When life already works well, people naturally care more about preserving it than replacing it. The familiar becomes something worth protecting. Not because people fear the unknown, but because they understand the value of what they already have. The afternoon breeze returns. It moves gently across the river, through the papyrus reeds, over the green fields, and into the village streets. The heat begins to ease. Workers straighten their backs. Children return to playing in shaded courtyards. The smell of evening fires has not yet appeared, but it is not far away. Another ordinary day continues its slow and peaceful journey beside the Nile, where every familiar task, every quiet conversation, and every patient pair of hands helps preserve a way of life that has changed so little that even the river itself seems to recognize it, flowing onward with the same calm certainty as it has for countless generations. The afternoon drifts gently toward evening. The sunlight no longer feels quite as fierce as it did a few hours earlier. The bright white glow of midday slowly softens into warmer shades. Across the Nile Valley, long shadows begin to return, stretching little by little across fields, roads, and village courtyards. The change is gradual. Most people hardly notice it at first. A farmer pauses beside an irrigation channel and wipes sweat from his forehead. He glances toward the western sky. The sun still stands high, but its journey is clear now. Another day is quietly moving toward its end. The farmer bends once more to his work. Water flows steadily through the narrow channel at his feet. The sound is gentle. A constant trickling that blends with the rustle of reeds nearby. He uses a wooden tool to strengthen a small bank where the current has begun wearing away the soil. The work is simple but important. In Egypt, water must be guided carefully. Too much water in one place can damage a field. Too little can leave crops struggling beneath the sun. Balance matters. The lesson appears everywhere. Balance between work and rest. Balance between storing and using. Balance between the river and the land. Many generations have learned these truths not from books, but from daily life itself. Nearby, a young boy follows his father through the fields. He carries a small basket that seems almost too large for him. Inside are handfuls of weeds pulled from between growing crops. The boy does not complain. He watches his father's movements closely. Where his father bends, he bends. Where his father pauses, he pauses. Children learn this way throughout the Nile Valley. Not through long instruction, but through quiet observation. One day the boy will work these same fields. One day his own child may walk beside him. The cycle continues, as steady as the river itself. At the edge of the village, a group of women sits beneath the shade of a large sycamore fig tree. Their work continues even during the softer hours of afternoon. One repairs a linen garment whose seam has begun to loosen. Another weaves reeds into a sturdy basket. A third sorts lentils, carefully removing small stones and bits of chaff. Their hands remain busy. Yet their conversation moves slowly. There is no urgency in their voices. The topics are familiar. A neighbor's new baby. A coming market day. A roof that needs repair before the flood season returns. The women have likely shared similar conversations many hundreds of times. The familiarity itself is comforting. Life does not need constant surprises to feel meaningful. Sometimes the greatest comfort comes from knowing exactly where you belong. The sycamore tree provides more than shade. It has become a gathering place over the years. Children often play beneath its branches. Elders rest there during hot afternoons. Travelers occasionally stop to enjoy a few moments of coolness before continuing their journey. The tree stands quietly through every season. It has watched generations come and go. Its roots reach deep into the soil nourished by the Nile. Its branches sway gently whenever the evening breeze arrives. Not far away, a carpenter finishes the final touches on a wooden stool. He runs his hand along the smooth surface. The wood feels warm from the afternoon heat. Satisfied with his work, he sets the stool aside. Tomorrow he will begin another project. There is always another project. A door that needs repair. A chest that needs building. A handle that needs replacing. The work never truly ends. Yet it rarely feels overwhelming. Tasks are completed one at a time. Patience turns large responsibilities into manageable ones. The carpenter learned this lesson many years ago from his own teacher. Now it lives quietly within his hands. Across the village, Smoke begins rising from a few cooking fires. Only a little at first. Thin gray ribbons climbing into the sky. The evening meal is still some time away, but preparation has already begun. Food requires planning. Grain must be ground. Vegetables must be cleaned. Water must be carried. Clay ovens must be heated. Much of life in ancient Egypt depends upon preparation. The visible moment is only part of the story. Behind every loaf of bread stands months of farming. Behind every linen garment stand countless hours of spinning and weaving. Behind every house stand thousands of sun-dried bricks. People understand this naturally. Their world teaches patience from childhood. Along the riverbank, fishermen return from the water. Some boats carry more fish than others. No one seems especially troubled by the difference. Fishing has always been uncertain. The river gives generously some days and more modestly on others. A fisherman secures his boat to a wooden post before lifting a basket onto his shoulder. The basket is damp. A few drops of water fall onto the sand as he walks. He passes a group of children watching with curiosity. One boy asks whether the fish were difficult to catch. The fisherman smiles. Some were. Some were not. The river decides such things. The answer satisfies everyone. The children continue watching as fish are sorted and prepared. Many of them dream of becoming fishermen themselves someday. The river feels almost magical when viewed through young eyes. Its wide waters seem endless. Its reeds hide birds and small animals. Its surface reflects the sky so perfectly that the boundary between water and heaven sometimes appears to disappear. Even adults never completely lose their affection for the Nile. It shapes every memory, every season, every meal, every hope for the future. As the afternoon continues fading, the marketplace becomes quieter. Many merchants have already sold most of their goods. Some begin covering baskets with woven mats. Others count the day's earnings. A few remain seated beneath shaded stalls, enjoying the cooler air that arrives before sunset. The marketplace itself seems tired. Not exhausted. Simply ready for rest. Dust settles slowly onto the paths. A stray dog wanders between empty stalls searching for scraps. Nearby, a cat stretches lazily atop a warm stone wall. Nothing feels rushed. The day is ending exactly as it should. Inside a small workshop, a scribe carefully rolls completed papyrus sheets into neat bundles. The room smells faintly of ink and dried reeds. Light filters through a narrow opening high in the wall, creating a golden stripe across the floor. The scribe pauses for a moment and flexes his fingers. Writing may not demand the strength of farming or stonework, but it brings its own kind of weariness. Hours of concentration leave the mind tired. Still, there is satisfaction in orderly records. Numbers balanced correctly. Names written clearly. Grain counted accurately. The work helps maintain the smooth flow of village life. Tomorrow another set of records will wait. There always seems to be another list to write. Another shipment to count. Another harvest to document. The rhythm continues. Outside, a flock of birds crosses the sky above the river. Their wings catch the late sunlight, flashing briefly against the deepening blue. Children point upward. Adults glance up for only a moment before returning to their tasks. Birds come and go. The river flows. The sun rises and sets. The familiar cycles continue. As the first hints of evening appear, the temperature becomes more pleasant. People straighten their backs. Work slows naturally. No one needs to announce the transition. Everyone feels it. The day itself signals the change. A woman carrying a clay jar pauses outside her home. She looks westward where the sunlight has begun turning golden. The walls of nearby houses glow warmly. Palm trees cast long shadows across the dusty ground. The village seems softer now. Gentler. Almost dreamlike. This may be one of the most peaceful times of the entire day. The hard work of morning is finished. The deepest heat has passed. Night has not yet arrived. The world rests briefly between effort and sleep. Many Egyptians likely treasured these moments. Not because anything extraordinary happened, but because nothing needed to happen. The fields were tended. The boats had returned. The ovens were warming. Families would soon gather. That was enough. Perhaps that is one reason life remained so stable for so long. People found meaning in continuity rather than constant change. The familiar was not boring to them. It was reassuring. Each repeated task confirmed that the world remained in balance. Each ordinary evening reminded them that another ordinary morning would soon follow. And so the Nile Valley settles into the golden hours before sunset, where workers slowly return home, where cooking fires begin their gentle glow, where the river reflects the changing sky, and where the ancient rhythm of Egypt continues onward, calm and unbroken, carrying countless ordinary lives through another peaceful day. The golden light of late afternoon slowly begins to fade. The sun lowers toward the western horizon with no sign of hurry, bathing the Nile Valley in warm shades of amber and soft bronze. The fields seem quieter now. The long hours of steady work have come to a gentle pause, and the entire landscape appears to exhale. Across the village, footsteps gradually turn toward home. The narrow streets that were busy since dawn now fill with familiar faces returning from the river, the workshops, and the fields. Dust rises beneath sandals before settling once again upon the earth that has carried generations of travelers. No one walks quickly. There is little reason to. The evening belongs to slower movements. A farmer carries his wooden hoe across one shoulder. Its handle has become smooth after many years in his hands. Tiny marks cover the wood where fingers have rested through countless planting seasons. The tool is old now, older than his youngest child, but it remains dependable. Like many things in ancient Egypt, it has lasted because someone cared for it. The farmer remembers his father teaching him how to sharpen the blade with a smooth stone. Never remove too much. Never too little. Take your time. A careful repair today saves much harder work tomorrow. Those simple words have stayed with him long after childhood. He now repeats them to his own son. In this way, knowledge travels quietly across the years. Not through grand speeches. Not through written books for most families. But through ordinary conversations while hands remain busy. As he reaches the edge of the village, he passes a small herd of goats being guided home by two children. The animals know the way without much encouragement. Their small hooves tap softly against packed earth. Tiny bells tied around a few necks ring gently with each step. The children laugh quietly when one curious goat pauses beside a basket of reeds before being encouraged onward. Even these small evening moments become part of village life. Repeated so often that they begin to feel timeless. Nearby, a woman stands outside her home brushing dust from woven sleeping mats before bringing them inside. She lifts each one carefully, shakes away the fine sand collected during the day, and rolls it neatly against the wall. The work is simple. Yet it matters. A clean mat means more comfortable sleep after long hours of labor. Ancient Egyptian homes were modest, but people took pride in keeping them orderly. The floors are swept each day. Clay jars are arranged neatly. Cooking tools are returned to their places. A tidy home creates a sense of calm. Inside one house, an elderly grandmother slowly grinds fragrant herbs using a smooth stone mortar. The scent of coriander, cumin, and dried mint fills the room. Nearby, lentils simmer gently inside a clay pot suspended above glowing coals. The bubbling is quiet, steady, almost soothing. A granddaughter watches with careful attention. She has seen these meals prepared many times before. Even so, she remains curious. The older woman smiles and invites her closer. She places a small pinch of herbs into the child's hand. The little girl lifts them to her nose. The earthy fragrance is warm and familiar. Without realizing it, she is already learning. Years from now, these same scents will remind her of evenings spent beside her grandmother. Memory often begins with ordinary things. The smell of bread. The sound of water. The warmth of an oil lamp. The cool touch of smooth clay beneath careful fingers. These quiet details remain long after louder moments have faded. Outside, the village well becomes busy once more. Several women gather with empty jars before darkness arrives. Water drawn in the evening will be ready for tomorrow morning's cooking and washing. Each clay jar is lowered carefully using thick rope. The splash echoes softly from below. The rope creaks. Then the jar rises once again, heavy with cool water. Strong arms lifted onto waiting shoulders. The women balance the jars with remarkable grace. Years of practice have taught them exactly how to walk without spilling more than a few drops. Their conversations continue as they make their way home. They speak about the coming flood season. One wonders whether the water will rise a little earlier this year. Another remembers a flood many years ago that covered the fields almost perfectly. Older women nod thoughtfully. Every flood becomes part of family memory. Children grow up hearing stories of years when the harvest was plentiful and years when patience was tested. The Nile teaches humility. No one commands it. Everyone depends upon it. Near the riverbank, several boys help pull a fishing boat farther onto shore. The wooden hull slides slowly across damp sand. Together they push with all their strength. The fisherman thanks them warmly. In return, he allows each child to look closely at the day's catch. Silver scales shimmer in the fading sunlight. One curious boy asks how long it took to catch them. The fisherman smiles before answering. The river gives in its own time. The children accept the answer without disappointment. They have heard similar words from parents, grandparents, and neighbors throughout their lives. Waiting is not seen as wasted time. It is simply part of living beside the Nile. Farther downstream, reeds sway gently along the shoreline. Dragonflies dart above the water. A turtle slips quietly beneath the surface as footsteps approach. The river continues flowing with patient certainty. It has watched countless evenings unfold just like this one. Long before these villagers were born, it reflected the same sunset. Long after they are gone, it will continue reflecting sunsets yet to come. Perhaps the river itself encouraged people to think beyond a single lifetime. Great change seemed less important than steady continuity. The Nile was always there. Its dependable presence quietly reminded everyone that some things become stronger by remaining constant. Across the village, smoke now arises from nearly every home. The smell of cooking fills the evening air. Fresh bread, roasted onions, beans seasoned with herbs, fish roasting over small fires. Families prepare simple meals that satisfy bodies made weary by honest work. There are no extravagant feasts tonight. There is no need. Ordinary meals shared together bring their own quiet happiness. Children gather around low tables. Parents divide bread evenly. An older brother pours water from a clay jug into small cups. The family begins eating together. Conversation is gentle. Someone mentions a broken fence that should be repaired tomorrow. Another speaks of a neighbor recovering from illness. A child proudly describes helping gather reeds along the river. No story is especially remarkable. Yet together they create the fabric of everyday life. After the meal, many families step outside before darkness fully arrives. The evening breeze has become cooler now. It carries away the last warmth of the day. Neighbors greet one another from nearby rooftops. Some sit upon low stools. Others simply rest against cool walls while watching the colors of the sky slowly deepen. Orange becomes gold. Gold becomes rose. Rose gradually fades into soft violet. The first evening star appears above the eastern horizon. An old man notices it immediately. He smiles. He has watched this same star emerge countless times. As a young boy, he once sat beside his grandfather, who pointed toward that very light in the sky. Now he watches it alone, carrying those memories quietly within him. Time moves gently in ancient Egypt. People rarely think in terms of dramatic change. Instead, they notice smaller things. A child growing taller. A date palm bearing more fruit than last year. A repaired roof surviving another season. A favorite clay cup becoming smoother with age. Life is measured through these quiet moments rather than sudden events. As twilight settles over the village, oil lamps begin glowing inside homes. Tiny flames flicker behind clay covers, casting warm circles of light upon mudbrick walls. Shadows dance softly across woven baskets, storage jars, and sleeping mats. Outside, the streets become peaceful once again. The sounds of work have almost completely disappeared. Only the occasional footsteps of a late traveler or the distant splash of water against a boat break the silence. The air smells of cooling earth. Palm leaves whisper gently overhead. Somewhere in the distance, a flute begins to play. The melody is simple. Slow. Unhurried. It rises into the evening sky before fading once more into the quiet. No one applauds. No crowd gathers. The music exists simply because the day has ended and the night has begun. It becomes another small thread woven into the peaceful rhythm of village life. And as darkness slowly spreads across the Nile Valley, the people of ancient Egypt settle into another familiar evening, surrounded by the comforting sounds of family, the steady presence of the river, and the quiet certainty that tomorrow will arrive with the same gentle light, the same patient work, and the same enduring rhythm that has guided their lives for countless generations. Twilight slowly gives way to night. The last traces of golden light disappear beyond the western desert, leaving behind a sky that deepens from soft blue into rich shades of indigo. One by one, the stars appear, quiet and unhurried, as though they have all the time in the world. The Nile reflects them gently. Its surface, so bright beneath the afternoon sun, now becomes dark and smooth, broken only by small ripples where the current continues its endless journey northward. The village grows quieter with every passing moment. Cooking fires burn lower. Conversations become softer. Doors remain open for a little while longer, allowing the cooler evening air to drift inside. After the warmth of the day, the breeze feels wonderfully gentle. It slips through narrow lanes, brushes against woven reed fences, and carries with it the scent of damp riverbanks and freshly baked bread that still lingers from the evening meal. A family sits together in a small courtyard. An oil lamp rests on a low stone beside them. Its flame is small, but steady. The warm light reaches only a short distance, leaving the corners of the courtyard wrapped in gentle shadow. The youngest child leans against his mother's shoulder. His eyelids grow heavier with every quiet story his grandfather tells. The old man does not speak of great battles or mighty rulers tonight. Instead, he remembers an especially kind flood many years ago. He recalls how the fields shimmered with green after the waters withdrew. He remembers neighbors helping one another gather grain before a storm arrived. He smiles while describing the smell of fresh bread carried through the village on cool mornings just like those of his youth. The children listen carefully. These stories are not extraordinary. That is exactly why they matter. They remind each generation that a good life is often built from ordinary days lived well. The grandfather pauses. He looks upward. The stars seem brighter now. Without the light of busy cities, the heavens stretch endlessly above the Nile Valley. Every familiar pattern shines clearly. Many people in ancient Egypt looked toward these same stars night after night. Sailors used them while traveling. Farmers noticed their seasonal appearance. Priests studied their movements with careful attention. But ordinary families also knew them simply as faithful companions overhead. They appeared each evening with quiet reliability. Like the river. Like the sunrise. Like the seasons. They became another reminder that much of the world remained beautifully constant. Not far away, a shepherd checks on his small flock before settling down for the night. The sheep have gathered closely together inside a simple enclosure built from wooden posts and woven reeds. He walks slowly around the fence. His hands rest lightly upon the rough wood. Everything seems secure. One lamb shifts slightly before lying down again. Satisfied, the shepherd smiles. His work is finished for today. Tomorrow morning, before the first sunlight reaches the fields, he will open the gate once again. The flock will know exactly where to go. Animals, like people, grow comfortable with familiar paths. Along the riverbank, a fisherman remains awake a little longer than most. His boat is tied safely to a wooden post. The nets have already been washed and spread neatly to dry before tomorrow's use. There is nothing left to prepare. Still, he lingers beside the water. He enjoys these quiet moments after the village has settled. The night belongs to the river now. Tiny fish occasionally disturb the surface with gentle splashes. A breeze creates soft ripples that catch the light of the moon. Reeds sway slowly along the shoreline. The fisherman breathes deeply. The cool air carries away the last warmth stored in his clothes from the afternoon sun. He has spent nearly every day of his life beside this river. He cannot imagine another way of living. Nor does he wish to. The Nile has provided food for his family. It has carried his boat through calm mornings and peaceful evenings. It has marked the passing of every season he can remember. To others, such a life might seem repetitive. To him, it feels reassuring. Every sunrise promises familiar work. Every evening offers familiar rest. There is comfort in that quiet certainty. Inside another home, a young mother prepares a place for her children to sleep. She unrolls woven mats across the packed earth floor. Each mat has been carefully brushed free of dust. A folded linen cloth serves as a pillow. The children lie down without much encouragement. The day has filled them with enough activity that sleep arrives easily. Before extinguishing the oil lamp, the mother checks the clay jars standing neatly against one wall. Water for tomorrow. Grain for several more days. A basket of onions. Bundles of dried herbs hanging from a wooden beam overhead. Everything has its place. Order makes daily life smoother. Searching for lost things wastes valuable time. Even small habits contribute to the peaceful rhythm of the household. She lowers the lamp's flame until it disappears. Darkness settles gently across the room. Only moonlight entering through a small opening high in the wall offers a faint silver glow. Outside, rooftops become quiet resting places. Several families choose to sleep beneath the open sky. The evening air remains pleasant. A father points upward before lying down. His daughter follows his hand toward a cluster of bright stars. She asks whether those stars looked the same when he was a child. He smiles. They did. She asks whether they looked the same when her grandfather was young. Again he smiles. They did. The answer comforts her. Some things stay. Children naturally notice change as they grow taller each year. Knowing that certain parts of the world remain steady makes the future feel less uncertain. Across the village, the watchman begins another slow walk through the sleeping streets. His sandals make little sound against the packed earth. An oil lamp hangs from one hand. Its soft light moves gently across walls, baskets, and doorways. He listens more than he looks. The quiet breathing of sleeping animals. The distant murmur of the river. The rustling of palm leaves overhead. Everything seems peaceful. That is exactly as it should be. He pauses beside the communal oven. Its fire has almost completely faded. Only a few glowing embers remain beneath a blanket of pale ash. Tomorrow, before dawn, someone will stir those embers back to life. Fresh reeds will be added. The flames will rise once more. Bread will bake again. Morning will begin just as it always has. The thought brings quiet satisfaction. As the night deepens, the desert beyond the green valley grows cooler. A fox moves silently across the sand before disappearing among scattered rocks. An owl glides over the fields, almost soundless as it searches for small creatures hidden below. Nature continues its own gentle routines while the village sleeps. The river flows. The stars wheel slowly overhead. The breeze shifts with the changing hours. Nothing competes for attention. Everything moves with patient purpose. Far from the homes, the great fields rest beneath moonlight. The rows of barley appear silver. The irrigation channels reflect thin ribbons of light. Tomorrow these fields will again welcome the footsteps of farmers carrying familiar tools. Tomorrow the birds will return. The oxen will pull wooden plows. Children will carry water. Women will grind grain. Craftsmen will shape clay and wood. The marketplace will slowly awaken. None of these thoughts trouble the sleeping villagers. Tomorrow's work is simply part of life. There is no dread in it. Only acceptance. Work and rest belong together, just as the river belongs beside its fertile banks. This gentle balance has guided countless generations. Perhaps that is why ancient Egypt changed so slowly. The rhythm of ordinary life was already deeply understood. Families knew when to plant. They knew when to harvest. They knew when to repair their homes before the flood. They knew when to gather together for meals as evening settled over the land. Each season quietly confirmed the wisdom of the one before it. Innovation was not always the greatest goal. Dependability often mattered more. As midnight approaches, silence becomes even deeper. The village seems wrapped in peaceful stillness. Only the steady current of the Nile continues its endless journey beneath the stars, carrying cool water through the sleeping valley, just as it has done for thousands of years. And beneath that wide and ancient sky, where gentle breezes move through the reeds and moonlight rests upon the quiet river, another ordinary night settles softly over Egypt, preserving the calm, familiar world that so many generations came to trust, one peaceful day and one peaceful night at a time. The deepest hours of the night arrive almost unnoticed. The village has become completely still. The last conversations ended long ago. The final cooking fire has cooled into soft gray ash. Even the dogs that wandered between doorways have curled into quiet circles, resting beside walls that still hold a little warmth from the long day beneath the sun. Above everything stretches an endless sky. The stars seem brighter now than they did only a few hours earlier. Without clouds to hide them, they shine with remarkable clarity, reflected softly upon the calm waters of the Nile. The river appears almost like another sky, flowing silently through the dark valley. For a little while, it feels as though the entire world has paused. Only the river continues moving. Its current never sleeps. Long before the first villages appeared beside its banks, the Nile was already making this same quiet journey. Long after these homes return to the earth from which they were built, it will continue flowing beneath the stars. The people who live beside it understand this in their own quiet way. Life belongs to the river's rhythm, not the other way around. In one small home near the edge of the village, an elderly potter wakes for a moment. Age has made his sleep lighter than it once was. He opens his eyes and listens. The cool night breeze enters through a narrow opening near the roof. It carries the faint scent of wet reeds and distant water. The old man smiles without moving. He has heard this same breeze for more than 60 flood seasons. As a boy, he listened to it while sleeping beside his parents. As a young man, he listened after long days shaping clay beside his own teacher. Now, with gray hair and slower hands, the sound remains exactly the same. There is comfort in that. He closes his eyes again. Sleep returns gently. Not because he forces it, but because the familiar sounds around him have always carried peace. Nearby, a young mother adjusts the light linen cloth covering her smallest child. The little boy turns quietly in his sleep before becoming still once more. His breathing is slow and even. Outside, the moonlight falls across the rooftop where his older brothers sleep beneath the open sky. The stars above them seem almost close enough to touch. No roof hides the heavens. No walls separate them from the cool night air. During the hottest months, many families welcome these evenings. The rooftop becomes another room of the house. Children fall asleep while counting stars. Parents whisper softly before silence returns. Grandparents remember sleeping beneath this same sky when they were young. The night itself becomes part of family life. Across the village, the watchman reaches the end of another quiet walk. He pauses near the entrance to a grain storehouse. Its heavy wooden door remains closed. The thick mud brick walls protect the harvest gathered many months earlier. Inside, countless baskets and jars wait patiently. Grain stored here is more than food. It is tomorrow's bread. Next month's meals. The promise that families will continue through another season. The watchman rests one hand against the cool wall. Everything is peaceful. Everything is exactly where it should be. He turns and continues walking. His sandals leave faint marks in the dust that will disappear beneath tomorrow's footsteps. Nothing lasts forever. Not even footprints. Yet each day brings new ones. This quiet cycle repeats itself endlessly. Along the riverbank, several boats rise and fall almost imperceptibly with the movement of the water. Their wooden hulls creak softly. The ropes holding them stretch and relax with each gentle motion. One small fishing net, forgotten upon the shore after drying, stirs slightly in the breeze. Its shadow lies across the sand like delicate woven lace. By sunrise it will be gathered once again. Nothing is left unattended for long. People care for what they own because nearly everything requires many hours of patient work. A boat cannot be replaced easily. Neither can a clay jar. Nor a woven basket. Every object has value because every object contains someone's time. The hours spent shaping it, repairing it, using it carefully. This understanding encourages people to live thoughtfully, not wastefully. As midnight slowly passes, the temperature becomes cooler still. The desert beyond the fertile valley releases the heat it gathered during the day. A gentle wind crosses the open sands before reaching the river. It brushes through the papyrus reeds, creating a soft rustling sound that seems almost like quiet breathing. A heron standing near the water's edge tucks its head beneath one wing. Nearby, a crocodile rests almost completely motionless along a muddy bank farther from the village. Even these ancient creatures become part of the nightly rhythm of the river. The people respect them. They know where it is safe to gather water. They know where children should not wander alone. Knowledge passed from one generation to another often comes through simple reminders repeated many times. Stay close to the familiar paths. Return home before darkness grows deep. Respect the river. Respect the desert. Respect the seasons. These lessons become habits. Habits become traditions. Traditions quietly shape an entire civilization. Farther inland, where fields stretch away from the village, barley moves gently beneath the night breeze. Moonlight turns each stalk silver. The irrigation channels lie calm, reflecting tiny stars upon their still surfaces. Tomorrow these fields will once again fill with voices, footsteps, and the quiet sounds of labor. For now they simply rest. Like the people who care for them. Rest is never treated as laziness. It is understood as part of good work. The strongest farmer cannot labor endlessly. The sharpest tool grows dull without care. Even the richest soil benefits from seasons of renewal. Nature teaches these lessons every year. The Egyptians pay attention. Inside another modest home, a basket weaver sleeps beside bundles of dried reeds collected earlier in the week. Tomorrow he will soak them in water before beginning another basket. He already knows its shape. A wide basket for carrying vegetables. Another for storing grain. Perhaps a smaller one for household use. He has woven hundreds before. Yet each one still deserves careful attention. Repetition has not made the work meaningless. Instead, repetition has made the work familiar enough that his hands move with quiet confidence. There is satisfaction in doing ordinary things well. As the hours continue slipping by, the eastern horizon remains dark, though the night has begun its slow journey toward morning. The stars have shifted ever so slightly. Anyone watching carefully would notice. Most people remain asleep. Their bodies recover from another day beneath the Egyptian sun. Dreams drift through quiet minds. Perhaps a fisherman dreams of calm water. A farmer dreams of healthy fields. A child dreams of racing along the riverbank with friends. Dreams arrive gently, just as sleep itself arrived beneath the cool evening sky. The Nile continues flowing. It does not pause for sleeping villages. It does not hurry toward tomorrow. Its patient current carries tiny boats, drifting reeds, and reflections of distant stars. For countless generations it has offered the same quiet promise. Morning will come. The fields will awaken. The birds will return to the papyrus. Bread will once again fill the air with its warm, familiar fragrance. Families will greet another ordinary day. Perhaps that is the quiet secret hidden within the long history of ancient Egypt. Its people did not build their world through constant change. They built it through steady care. Through habits repeated with patience. Through respect for seasons that never hurried. through trust in the river that returned again and again. Each ordinary day became one small stone in a foundation that lasted for centuries. As the night grows older and the silence deepens, the ancient valley rests peacefully beneath its blanket of stars, waiting without impatience for the first faint light of dawn, when another calm morning will gently unfold beside the timeless waters of the Nile, just as it has done through generations beyond counting. The night slowly begins to loosen its gentle hold upon the valley. At first, nothing seems different. The stars still fill the sky. The moon hangs quietly above the western desert. The river continues its silent journey, reflecting tiny points of light upon its smooth surface. Yet somewhere beyond the eastern horizon, morning has already begun. No one can see it yet. Only the faintest hint of change exists, almost too small to notice. The coolest hour of the day has arrived. The warmth that filled the stones and mud brick walls yesterday has completely faded. The air feels fresh against sleeping faces. Those resting on rooftops pull thin linen cloths a little closer before settling comfortably once again. The breeze is gentle. It carries the scent of wet earth from the riverbank. It moves through groves of date palms, causing long fronds to whisper softly to one another. The sound is delicate, almost like quiet voices sharing stories that have been told for thousands of years. In a small house near the center of the village, an elderly baker opens his eyes. He does not wake because of noise. His body simply knows the hour. For nearly 50 years he has risen before almost everyone else. His mornings have followed the same path for so long that sleep releases him naturally, long before sunrise. He sits for a few moments without standing. His joints move more slowly than they once did. He stretches his hands. They are broad and strong despite their age. Fine lines of flour seem to have become part of his skin after so many years spent kneading dough. He smiles quietly. Another day waits. Another batch of bread. Another ordinary morning. He would not wish for anything different. The baker lights a tiny oil lamp. Its flame is small enough that it barely disturbs the darkness. He walks carefully across the room. Clay jars stand exactly where they always do. The large bowl used for mixing dough rests beside the wall. Bundles of dry reeds wait near the doorway. Everything has its place. He does not need to search for anything. Order saves both time and effort. Many Egyptian households are arranged this way. Not because anyone demands it. Simply because repeated routines naturally create order. The baker steps outside. The village remains asleep. Above him, the stars are beginning to fade ever so slightly. Only someone awake every morning would notice. He walks toward the communal oven. The packed earth beneath his sandals feels cool. His footsteps leave faint marks that will disappear once the village comes alive. The oven stands quietly where it has stood for many years. Yesterday's ashes remain inside. The baker kneels. Carefully, he brushes aside the pale layer covering the bottom. Deep beneath, tiny red embers still glow. Patiently waiting. He smiles again. Fire, like memory, sometimes survives beneath the surface long after it appears to have disappeared. He places a handful of dry reeds over the embers. Then a few small pieces of wood. He bends close. One gentle breath. Then another. Slowly, a thin curl of smoke rises. A moment later, tiny orange flames begin dancing once more. There is no hurry. The fire understands its work. It grows stronger little by little. The baker waits quietly beside it. Many tasks reward patience more than speed. Nearby, another figure appears in the darkness. It is a woman carrying an empty clay jar. She nods politely as she passes. Neither speaks loudly. Morning has not fully arrived. The quiet still belongs to the night. She walks toward the river where the first water of the day will be collected. The path feels familiar beneath her feet. She has walked it thousands of times. She knows every gentle slope, every smooth stone, every bend where reeds grow taller. She reaches the riverbank. Mist floats just above the water. The Nile seems almost asleep itself. She kneels carefully. The clay jar disappears beneath the surface with a soft splash. Cool water fills it slowly. When she lifts it again, tiny drops run down the smooth sides before falling back into the river. The jar is heavy now. Yet she raises it with practiced grace. Years of experience have taught her exactly how to balance its weight. She turns toward home. Behind her, the river continues flowing quietly through the fading darkness. Farther along the bank, the first fishermen begin preparing their boats. They speak in low voices. Their words blend with the gentle movement of water against wood. One man checks the knots securing his net. Another examines a paddle worn smooth by many seasons. Nothing has been left to chance. Every evening the tools were cleaned. Every evening they were placed where they belonged. Now, before dawn, everything is ready. Preparation makes the morning peaceful. One fisherman pauses before pushing his boat into the river. He looks eastward. The horizon has changed. Only slightly. A narrow band of deep blue has become pale gray. Morning is approaching. He smiles quietly. Another day beside the Nile is beginning. Not far away, birds hidden among the papyrus begin stirring. The first call is almost hesitant. A single clear note drifting across the water. Several moments pass. Then another bird answers. Soon a dozen different voices fill the reeds. The village has not yet awakened. The birds always arrive first. Their songs become the gentle invitation that welcomes another sunrise. Inside the homes, people begin shifting in their sleep. Children roll over beneath thin blankets. An old dog lifts its head before settling down once more. A baby murmurs softly before returning to peaceful dreams. The village is caught between sleeping and waking. Between stars and sunlight. Between yesterday and today. This quiet moment lasts only a short while. Yet it arrives every single morning. Its familiarity becomes one more thread woven into the lives of the people. The baker returns to his home carrying warmth from the growing fire. His wife has already begun preparing flour. Together they work almost without speaking. One pours water. The other mixes. Hands press and fold the dough with slow, practiced movements. The soft sound of kneading fills the room. Outside, smoke begins rising from one chimney. Then another. Soon thin gray ribbons drift upward all across the village. Morning announces itself gently. Never all at once. Always one small sign after another. A farmer steps outside carrying his wooden hoe. He looks toward the sky. The stars are fading quickly now. The eastern horizon glows with soft shades of silver. He takes a deep breath. The cool air feels pleasant. Within only a few hours, the fields will once again shimmer beneath the Egyptian sun. Now is the time to begin. His wife hands him a simple morning meal. Fresh bread still warm from the oven. A few onions. A small piece of cheese. He thanks her quietly. They have shared mornings like this for many years. Neither needs many words. Routine has created its own silent understanding. Across the village, Doors begin opening one after another. Sandals touch the earth. Clay jars are lifted. Donkeys shake themselves awake. Children blink sleep from their eyes. The familiar rhythm returns with remarkable gentleness. No trumpet sounds. No command is given. Life simply begins again. The same river flows. The same paths welcome familiar footsteps. The same ovens fill the air with the comforting smell of bread. The same workshops wait for skilled hands. The same fields stretch patiently toward the morning light. And as the first edge of the sun finally rises above the distant horizon, golden light spills slowly across the Nile Valley once more, touching every mudbrick home, every quiet boat, every green field, and every peaceful face, beginning another ordinary day in ancient Egypt, a day that feels wonderfully familiar, reassuringly unchanged, and perfectly at home within the timeless rhythm of the ancient world. The first rays of morning now rest softly upon the Nile, turning its quiet waters into ribbons of pale gold. The village has begun to wake once more, just as it has on countless mornings before. A baker tends the warm oven. A fisherman unties his small boat from its familiar post. Farmers walk toward fields that have welcomed generations of careful hands. Children slowly open their eyes to another peaceful day beneath the white Egyptian sky. Life continues. Not with great fanfare. Not with sudden change. Only with the quiet certainty that another ordinary day has arrived. Perhaps that was the quiet strength of ancient Egypt. For thousands of years, its people trusted the gentle rhythm of seasons more than the excitement of constant change. They found comfort in familiar work, familiar neighbors, familiar paths beside the river, and evenings that always seemed to end beneath the same patient stars. The great monuments that still stand today began with ordinary mornings much like these. Before stone was lifted, bread was baked. Before temples rose, fields were watered. Before history remembered the names of kings, countless families swept their floors, mended their baskets, repaired their boats, comforted sleepy children, and watched the Nile carry another sunset toward the sea. Their names have mostly faded into the quiet distance of time. Yet their lives remain woven into every mud brick, every worn footpath, every stretch of fertile earth beside the river. It was not only rulers who built ancient Egypt. It was ordinary people who woke before dawn. Who carried water without complaint. Who planted grain with hope. Who rested beneath palm trees when the afternoon grew warm. Who shared simple meals by the glow of small oil lamps. Who trusted that tomorrow would arrive much like today. And for them, that was not a disappointment. It was a blessing. Now the morning breeze moves gently through the papyrus one last time. The reeds whisper softly along the riverbank. A heron lifts gracefully into the brightening sky. Palm leaves sway with slow and steady rhythm. The Nile continues its endless journey, calm as ever, flowing through fields of green before disappearing toward the distant horizon. The sounds of the village become softer. Not because they have vanished, but because they slowly blend into the peaceful music of the river itself. Imagine standing there for just one more quiet moment. The warm earth beneath your feet. The scent of fresh bread carried on the breeze. The gentle splash of water against a wooden boat. The distant call of morning birds greeting another sunrise. The first light resting upon walls of sun-dried brick. The steady footsteps of neighbors beginning another familiar day. Nothing asks to be hurried. Nothing asks to be changed. Everything simply belongs. As our own quiet journey through this ancient world comes gently to rest, let the river continue flowing in your imagination. Let the warm desert wind drift softly past. Let the voices of ordinary families fade into the distance like echoes carried across the water. And as the sun rises higher above the timeless Nile, allow the peaceful rhythm of this ancient land to settle gently into your thoughts. May the calm of its slow mornings, its patient evenings, and its quiet, unchanging days remain with you. The river flows on. The breeze continues to whisper through the reeds. The stars will return again tonight, just as they always have. And somewhere, beyond the reach of time, ancient Egypt rests peacefully beside the Nile, wrapped in the same gentle silence that carried generation after generation into another quiet night, and another gentle dawn.